It's no secret that cliches and buzzwords tend to rule the public consciousness, especially when it comes to talking about political or social issues, and the phrase, diversity is our strength, is no exception.
Our strength, and what is literally unique among major countries around the world, is our diversity.
In EU agencies, our strength is our diversity.
Diversity is our strength.
Indeed, as evidenced by those clips you saw, this phrase has become the rallying call of so many different people who believe they have an idea of what it means to have a good society, what it means to have the best society, and there was the most diverse society, people who tend to align with left-wing. Not always, but almost more certainly they have a progressive cause. But this phrase, just like every other cliche that rules the public mind, is tyrannical. It's tyrannical because it assumes a conclusion without going through the proper phases of argumentation to prove and justify the conclusion, and then forces people into ideological compliance on the backs of virtue signaling instead of rationality. Because if you say, my friends, diversity is our strength, let's say we don't even know anything about the term. Let's say we're not even looking at the term. If you say diversity is our strength, that will imply a bunch of things in the minds of different people. And if you go against that term, you could possibly be going against almost every single good thing that person is thinking, which then therefore makes you an evil person. So these words basically imprison you by proximity and also by obfuscation, because they are vague and they are intentionally vague, and that is how people who seek to change the discourse and bend it towards their ends operate. They don't operate in the light of truth. They operate with intentionally vague words meant to excite the passions, excite your emotions, but not engage your mind. But also, there are several logical errors of the phrase, diversity is our strength. Because number one, it's fundamentally untenable because it presumes that strength belongs to this sort of collective entity. And presumably, if we're looking at this term in its proper context, it would assume that strength belongs to society. So not only that, not only does it presume that strength belongs to the collective entity, it also presumes that society is some kind of organism, some kind of hive mind that goes in one direction and operates in one direction. But this is evidently not true. But the fact that it assumes this shows you just kind of what kind of worldview this idea comes from. Society is not a hive mind. Society at its very basic core are people organizing together on the basis of mutual interest. And those interests can be as bare bone and as transactional and as empty as you going to the grocery store and ordering a product and expecting the cashier to ring you up and get you out of there so you can go home and binge watch Netflix, or it can be as deep and as meaningful as you going to an art gallery, you pitching your art to the people that run the gallery, and you explaining the contents of your soul to them, pouring yourself out. Society can be either one of those things, but the fundamental thing is, it's never just one of those things. It is different, and it's different for different people, and it's different on different levels. If diversity truly is our strength, it would have to be true for at least most people in a society, and it would have to apply to most areas of society. But what idea, what concept do you know actually applies to most areas of society that are not basic bare-bone things? Yes, we know that death and taxes are universal truths. But what concept do you know, other than those two things, that applies to almost every area of society? Well, for example, there are people in society who are vegans. Not everyone is a vegan. But if you were to say some kind of mantra that would assume everyone or the majority have veganism, that would be incorrect, because veganism is a practice of only certain people in a society. This is not a case of moral relativism. This is simply a case to understand that different people in society have different ways of interacting with principles, and we should understand that if we're going to understand what it might mean for diversity to be our strength. We don't all get strength or get encouragement from the same sources, because human expression and human desires are so multifaceted and they are so complex. But also, this term, diversity is our strength, is vulnerable to manipulation when understood in our current cultural context and not firmly established in universal meaning, because the term, as I mentioned before, diversity being our strength, can mean anything to anyone in any area, and they can then interpret it to reflect an image of what they believe that might be. So when you say diversity is our strength, without any context, without any further justification, you are essentially then lending credence to the wildest imaginations of people, which will then inform their behaviors in reality. And if man's behavior conforms with his imagination and doesn't conform with the truth of reality, he will act in a chaotic and destructive fashion. This is why you can see the modern day conception of identity and diversity being based on identity and not based on values. A lot of people, when they say the word diversity, at least in the modern day parlance, of course, there are exceptions, of course, and when you see that word slapped upon the face of institutions, of programs in those institutions, that typically means you having a diversity of people that belong to some kind of class, some kind of group, who are unified not on the basis of values, but on the basis of crude matter on their skin, on the basis of their sexual preference, on the basis of their sexual organs, something that does not imply anything greater about the human being's soul, but simply applies something about their form. That is what diversity tends to mean today. And of course, this idea of diversity has been used as a bludgeon against people who the progenitors and the proponents of this idea believe are enemies of these diverse groups. For example, why do you think in so many different organizations, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs oftentimes tend to include things that are disparaging towards white people? Why do you think there is a popular sentiment in certain stratas of society that Asians are white adjacent and benefit from white supremacy? All of these ideas are implied by this broader idea of diversity as rooted in class as defined by crude matter, whether it be skin color, sex, or whatever, which doesn't really connect to values. And here is my understanding of what real diversity is. Real diversity exists when people in naturally occurring situations come together, bringing their own skills to the table, and also bringing their unique set of values to the table. But the moment you eliminate values, and the moment you eliminate the individual, two things which are sacrificed, cut up, chopped up, and discarded by the modern day contemporary view of what diversity is, the false view, the moment you get over those two things, you don't have diversity, you have a pale image of diversity which does not live up to the true idea and therefore is destructive in all its ways. That's why you see the rise of so much hatred towards white people, or hatred towards men, or hatred towards conservatives, because there is this overarching sense of identity as based in the class, and the class as informed by ideas that don't mean anything, as opposed to values, man's spiritual currencies, which he uses to understand the world and the connected relationships and to build community, things that actually matter. Those are being swept away and disregarded, because so many of us have a materialistic idea in our mind, and most certainly the progressive left, which has concocted and has used this modern day idea of identity to further their own social and political power, most certainly have rejected the spiritual nature of man. And they, for the past 120 plus years, since the dawning of the progressive era, since the era of Woodrow Wilson and Teddy Roosevelt, they have embraced almost entirely a materialistic calculus of the nation, of society, and of the human being, one that is rooted 100% in one thing: understanding man as he is shaped by institutions, as he is shaped by society, not man as he exists in his own capacity, and not man as he can achieve by his own potential. Diversity as our strength implies a bunch of crude, nasty ideas which to reject the very heart of what it means to be a human being. Diversity is not our strength. We don't have a collective strength. We don't have a unified strength. But what we do have, and what is universal throughout all of human society, is the importance of sound thinking and reason to a good life and to the moral life. Man gets his strength, if anything, if history has anything to show us, if examples of heroism throughout the ages have anything to show us, man gets his strength by applying his reason to the truth and allowing the truth to guide him, even if society is pulling him in directions that are against the truth, even if society is pulling him in directions that are against his own well-being. The mark of a great man is he who can maintain the sound consistency of his character, he who can maintain the fullest constitution of his being while society tries to rip him apart, rip him to shreds, and tear him down and turn him into one of their sacred cows. That is what a great man is. And if anything gives strength to the individual man, and if that reverberates off and reflects off of him and spreads to other people, because we, of course, can learn things by osmosis as human beings. We are influenced by examples. If any of that is true, then one thing most certainly is the constant, and the constant is seeing acts of courage that are born from a man following his conscience, and his conscience being oriented to the truth. That is where we can get our strength from. And the American experiment was founded upon men of conscience getting together, finding the truth by studying philosophy, studying morality, studying history, and then applying the insights of their intellection against one of the fiercest empires the world had ever seen that had conquered most of the developed world, and soundly defeating it, and then building a country which, in my opinion, became much greater in every respect than that empire could ever have been. It became much greater in every respect, socially, morally, philosophically, than that empire ever was. That is strength. But this modern day idea of diversity will not get us to any measure of strength. It will leave us in a place of weakness, a place of lethargy, a place of confusion, both intellectual and moral confusion. And it will keep us bound to the old world conception that classes and crude identity matter more than your spiritual nature as a human being, matter more than your conscience, and matter more than your reason. And the moment you tell someone that the collective matters more than their own guiding North Star within the center of their heart, the laws written on their heart which form their morality, is the moment you tell someone to reject their humanity. And that's the moment. Forget about strength or weakness. That's the moment you annihilate the human being. Fight against this annihilation. Diversity is not our strength. Truth is the only source of strength for the individual man. Consistency, bound by truth, is the only source of strength for the individual man. Consistency, bound by truth, informed by rationality, is the only securer of the truth, of strength for the individual man. Let these things guide you, America, not the false ideas imported from Europe and inflicted upon us by cultural revolutionaries who don't care about our society and merely wish to remake America in their foul image. I love all of you. If you want to help me keep my message going, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel, donate to me. All the links on the comment section down below. Get this message out there. Join my Discord if you want to. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.